Hello, and welcome to Postcards, Sir John Betjeman. This is a short chinwag about the former poet laureate. He was nothing if not English, and his work has had a sort of influence, I suppose, on middle-classness, respectability, and the suburbs. And he built, as I feel the Beatles did, although he wouldn't perhaps have appreciated the parallel. He would have fallen back and laughed in that way of his. The parallel between popular culture and popularity and the highbrow world, or seemingly highbrow world, of poetry. Now, Sir John was born, I've written these dates down, in 1906, which, let's face it, is a very, very long time ago. And he lived until 1984. So he was, for most of us, those that remember him, a very old man. He earned his living in various ways, which in a way sort of emphasized perhaps the rebellious nature of his personality. He did bits of journalism. Obviously, he was primarily a poet, but he also was founder of the Victorian Society, and he was responsible for the preservation of certain archways and buildings. I don't have the full details, but if you go to Euston Station and crab along to St Pancras, you will see what I mean in all its glory. Now, the first book I want to look at, because I'm sort of referencing it back to little books, is collected poems. This was a book owned by my parents. I don't know which of them would have enjoyed it most. I can't imagine they went into a shop and bought it. That's really rather an unkind thing to say, but in truth, I can't. This has a poem called Camberley in it, which is where my father was born and where they lived. And I suspect as much as anything that drew him to peruse Sir John's work. I wonder whether you would make a friend to Mrs. Kittiwake. Colonel Kittiwake, it's true, is not the sort of man for you. I'll tell you how to get to know their cosy little bungalow. When sunset gilds the Surrey pines, the family's usually dines. So later, in the Surrey dark, make for Poona Puka Park, and by the monument to Clive, presumably Clive of India, you'll come to Enniscorthy Drive. Coolgreener is the last of all, and mind the terrier when you call. The drawing room is done in pink. The other rooms are mauve, I think. So when you see electric light behind pink curtains, it's all right. Knock gently. Don't disturb the maid. She's got to clear, I'm afraid. And she is less inclined to take the blame than Mrs. Kittiwake. Now, there's considerable contrivance, really, in the spelling, in the rhyming. Somebody called Mrs. Kittiwake, who has no particular relevance that I know of to Camberley. Enniscorthy Drive, I've no idea, my father would have done, whether in fact, and Poona Punka Park is obvious reference to India. He was rather good at getting hold of a concept like respectability or the urban sprawl or something, and cars or pollution or vandalism, and almost, if not quite, sending it up. He would look upon it and sort of glower at it as if, I'm not ready yet to speak. And when he does speak, when he does say things, they are today revered, and at one time they would have been respected. Anyway, this is a little anthology published by John Murray, who also published Sherlock Holmes books, I think I used to read. And it's a 1959, as old as me, reprint. And clearly he was enjoying considerable popularity in that time. The phone is ringing. Well, I'm not going to go and answer it. The next book I'm going to show you is this. This was published considerable time after he passed away. Trains and Buttered Toast, edited by Stephen Games. And it's once again, it's a John Murray. It's this eccentric, sentimental and homespun. John Betjeman's passions were mostly self-taught. Yes, I think they were. Possibly the intervention of both world wars would have had something to do with that. And I can't help thinking that if he went to university, he did go to university, actually, I think he went to Oxford, for fervent pleas for provincial preservation, to humoresques on eccentric vicars and his own personal demons, John Betjeman talks combined wit, nostalgia, and criticism in a way that touched the souls of listeners from the 1930s to the 1950s. He would write in The Listener and various publications, all of which probably now are all but lost. So it is nice. These are not, and by definition, these are not poems. These are prose pieces which he used to write, possibly in desperate need of funds. I don't know. Waterloo Bridge is falling down. I have in my hand today's paper. The heading reads, Old Waterloo Bridge doomed to be pulled down, LCC decision, London County Council, don't you know. 8 years ago, the tracks were noticed by Architects Journal and the agitation started. Mr. Herbert Morrison, a late Minister of Transport, said, according to my paper, that before the agitation started, 99 people out of every 100 had not noticed the beauty of the bridge, which is a debatable point. Well, it's a good job that John was there to put us straight. This was written in 1932, or nearly 100 years later. Such refined thought still exists, even though if you visit Paternoster Square, or what you will, or anywhere really, you will see Paternoster Square in London. You will see various editions and sublimations and pull downs. Even here in Basingstoke, a church which I've never visited and would love to have done. I'm not religious, far from it, but I would like to have seen it. The greatest question of all that arises from the destruction of Waterloo Bridge is how much an architect ought to be an engineer. Rennie is not well known to everybody. He is frequently confused by people who want to be funny and ignorant with Wren and the Renaissance. His chief work is Waterloo Bridge. That's what I said, didn't I? If we accept his magnificent docks at Stonehouse in Plymouth, here's where Jane Anson used to live. And in both the bridge and the docks, he showed himself to be an architect and engineer at once. In other words, in strong sympathy and empathy with what he saw. And he knew clearly, presumably, what he wanted to achieve. Engineering and architecture got divorced, and we have the result in St Pancras Station. That's what I was trying to say earlier. And hotel, the magnificent steel roof, which is pure architecture and engineering. And now there is a statue to John Betjeman on the station, or in the station if you prefer. Built in 1851, that's King's Cross. Next door to it is a fine example of engineering and architecture in one. It is so hidden by huts and litter that no one notices it. A pleasant overstatement. I do not want to suggest that the new Waterloo Bridge must be something inappropriate in those materials, but I think that since Sir Frederick Palmer, the engineer, and Sir Giles Gilbert Scott, the architect, are two separate persons, the combination of them both will have to be wonderfully harmonious if a fine design is the result. We are no longer impressed by fine steel structures on which Georgian decorations are festooned like flowers around the maypole. Waterloo Bridge is a great chance for an architectural engineer, or both working as one. But what will be the result? Since one of the last great works of the Great Age is being destroyed, for Waterloo Bridge has more admirers abroad than in England, we must not ask questions. We must be content with hoping that the first great work of a new age will take its place. So he was in a way reconciled, though he was writhing seemingly in agony. He also drew his arguments, his points, which he wished to get across, to a finite point, didn't he? He didn't say, and nor did he descend to the level of insults or total assassination, character assassination. I feel a bit of an insult coming on here as non-Bristolians to talk about the good and bad of Bristol. What I have, a green-faced, bald-headed, semi-intellectual. Yeah, we'll talk about putting himself down. Just read that again. What right have I, a green-faced, bald-headed, semi-intellectual, to say something that will make a city father wince, or some kind-hearted housewife sitting in the ugliest villa between here and Weston listen to a wireless set? Those of you who are below the age of 90 may not know that a wireless set is in fact a radio transmitter. Where was I? Fretwork case looks like a cross between a bonded warehouse and the Taj Mahal. What right have I to criticise? Well, what right indeed, but as his life went on, he did, and he earned every right to do so. Sea View. This was broadcast in 1938, so just before the outbreak of the Second World War. Which are you? I don't know which you are. Have you children still of the age that finds pleasure in exploring caves? Children might easily tumble over steep cliffs in search of seagulls' eggs. Children who come back tired to the evening with a bucket full of jellyfish and upset them over the bedroom floor. Children who get up monstrously early and long to get down to the sea. Children who still believe in ghosts and smugglers. Why shouldn't you believe in ghosts and smugglers? That's not childish. It's a jolly good idea. Children who expect to find the wreck of a Spanish galleon in the next bay and sea-smooth skeleton of a pirate wedged in the hollow of the cliffs. You see, it's always something gently mocking, and he was also self-depreciating. It's all there. He talks about St Ives, Falmouth, Bude, where Cornwall thins out into Devon and Heartland stretches onto the Atlantic. I don't even know what that is, but nevertheless. Here all the summer could I stay, for there's Bishop's Tyne and King's Tyne and Coombe at the clear Tyne head, where close by the stream you may have your cream all spread upon barley bread. And that is not Sir John, that is Keats. Perhaps you're a man who likes a bit of everything. A good cinema in the evening, a promenade, a bus service, good scenery, good bathing, good music, good country in a near neighbourhood for walks. Yes, I am. Not that good on cinemas, actually. I can't see properly when I get in there. Don't spend all your money on promenades, pavilions, and fairy lights along the front. Remember the back. I love it. Remember the speculative builders' estates that will soon be slums stretching away miles from the sea, but still called the borough of, whatever, which will get you a bad name and which deface England more and more every minute. He was attempting to hold back time, wasn't he? This was a much later effort. It's called Coming Home, or England Revisited, first for the benefit of those who have not done it lately. Leaving home, the boat slides away from the quay. There is a moment's pain. Those lucky people waving from the shore will come back, fix the black curtain, put the kettle on, let the dog out, or go to a crashing lecture in the Home Guard. But for you and me, it is diminishing cliffs. In other words, we're going out to sea, then a landscape that is not England. We buoy ourselves up with thoughts of adventure before us. We think of soul-stirring articles about democracy, freedom of speech and thought, about how awful the Nazis are. Yes, he was a great patriot, a word that isn't used anymore, though in a way I think it, with a small p, it should be. And I would hate to think that his writings would be doomed to oblivion. The publication of this, I'll find out the date. I think I bought it when it was new. 2006. Well, if it isn't still in print, I know for a fact you can get it out the library. My eyes, my nose, my ears, all strain for England when I am away. Oil lamps and bold Gothic mouldings at evensong in a country church. Tattered copies of hymns, ancient and modern. The crackle of slow combustion stove. The pleasantly acrid smell of flowering currant bushes on the platforms of the local station. Now, I'm going to pause here. I have no interest in train spotting that I can think of. But what I would say is when I go to northern stations, which isn't very often in North of England, I see a lot of self-respect and shiny platforms. You wouldn't get that in the south. Anyway, the cat in the backyard licking the sunshine off its paws, and still summer day, shopping in a big town, and for me, a gambling den that will one day bring my wife and children to starvation. The second-hand bookshops, the stalls in Farrington Street, London, remote haunts in Highbury and Islington. Yes, Sir John, R.I.P. to most, if not all, of that. I'll just give you one more before we pass on. He's talking about Tennyson under the heading Eccentrics. One bright summer day, I went to see Tennyson's house, Farringford, in the Isle of Wight. I approached it by a back way, past thatched buildings of chalk and stone, down a hot, forgotten lane, fluttering with peacocks and white admirals, and then round the corner with a grey, deserted house. It seemed to be some sort of holiday camp, with its southward view of cliffs and sea. The groves of pine on either hand to break the blast of winter stand, and further on the hoary channel tumbles a billow on chalk and sand. Yes, if it wasn't for the chalk, it wouldn't be called the Isle of Wight. Where, if below the milky steep, some ship of battle slowly creep, and those zones of light and shadow glimmer away to the lonely deep. There, we'll leave it there. That's the book. I'll be listing the books in due course. This is a very... I bought this book for my 40th birthday. I was given a book token from colleagues at work, and I invested in this. It was not necessarily controversial, but I do know his daughter, who's since passed away, mentioned that Dad wasn't too keen on an anthology of his prose pieces. He writes about various people, the sculptor Jacob Epstein, ever since his first made his public appearance. Jacob Epstein has been accused of blasphemy, immorality, obscenity, sensationalism, perversion, delighting in ugliness, breaking the 10 Commandments, breaking the conventions, incompetence, decadence, adultery, treachery, lack of patriotism. Interesting that he mentions that. And many other major crimes which is possible to commit in the present state of society. These may be accusations, may not have increased in volume, but they have not decreased in vociferousness. So that now the man in the street, if he does not, like Lord Darling, confuse Epstein with Einstein, consider him to be a sort of person that is not safe to leave children alone with, nor even to go near himself. Well, I'm going to leave you that simple shades. He shows some illustrations here. Whether these are worthy of Edward Lear or even, I don't really know, possibly not. Series of articles written in The Spectator, City and Suburb. This week I had my 50th birthday. Well, Sir John, that must have been in 1956. And this is a Spectator article he wrote. I sometimes look through The Spectator. It's a bit expensive. T.S. Eliot, The Londoner. The yellow fog that rubs its back upon the window panes may well have a Boston fog, have been a Boston fog, if they have them there. The 4 wax candles in the darkened room, which look to me so like somewhere in Bloomsbury, may well be in New England. In other words, it floats around. Here's another in the series, again edited by Stephen Games, and it's called Tennis, Whites and Tea Cakes. This is private letters, journalism, and never before seen musings. I would have said most of what Natty wrote were musings. He sipped at a weak hock and seltzer. Without checking, I know this is about the arrest of Oscar Wilde, as he gazed at the London skies through Nottingham lace of the curtains, or was it his bees' winged eyes? To the right and before him, Pont Street, the tower in her new-built red, as hard as the morning gaslight, that shone on his unmade bed. I want some more hock in my seltzer. And Robbie, please give me your hand. Is it the end or the beginning? How can I understand? So you brought me the latest yellow book, and Buchan has got in it now. Approval of what is approved of is as false as a well-kept vow. More hot, Robbie. Where's the seltzer? Dear boy, pull again at the bell. They are all little better than cretins, though this is the Cadogan Hotel. More Astrakhan coat is at Willis's, and other ones at the Savoy. Do fetch my Moroccan portmanteau and bring them on later, dear boy. A thump and a murmur of voices. Oh, why must they make such a din? As the two of the bedroom swung open, as the door of the bedroom swung open, and 2 plain policemen. Mr. Wilde, you have come to take you where felons and criminals dwell. We must ask you to leave us quietly, for this is the Cadogan Hotel. He rose and put down the yellow book. He staggered, and terrible-eyed, he brushed past the palms of the staircase and was helped to a hansom outside. This is a smaller book. Here is the old boy. I'm calling him an old boy. In a way, he was like a little boy. He enjoyed his life so much, though he was on occasion, more than one occasion, of course, melancholic. He's talking about William Sansom's short stories. This was published in 1952, and his relationship, his similarity with Rudyard Kipling. He has the versatility, the ear and the sense construction of that great man. He lacks Kipling's decided point of view, Kipling's admiration of the virtue of moral courage and the perseverance. He is no empire builder. I wonder what Sir John would have made of Brexit. I know what I make of Brexit. His contemporary amorality may look Sansom's writings unattractive to an older generation. I think he was increasingly looking forward in one form or another to his old age. Unforgettable Scientific Prophecy. He's reviewing a very interesting book, which you can still get in HMVs to this day, because I've seen it there, maybe not last week, but last month. Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. Not my favorite author, but he is very good. I mean, of course he is. I have left out the description and the powerful horror of this unlikable but compelling tale. I advised it from all worshippers of speed, popular wireless entertainment, luxury flats, and mechanical labor-saving devices. Once read, it will never be forgotten and should be in every laboratory and technical college and atomic planting country of those, if those places are relied subversive books. Well, he's calling a spade a shovel there, isn't he? This is much later, Commerce and Ostentation. Most of us belong to the generation which think that the decorations are immoral. Simplicity has been lauded almost since King Edward died. The decorations of buildings with anything permanent, like stone moulding cornices, are thought wrong for the following reasons. It is insincere because it disguises the construction. It showed that the architect was frightened of bare space, could not use proportion as a decoration in itself. There's a thought. Decoration collected dust. It has a reproduction of details of the past and therefore not a true expression of the modern age. Well, that's quite some statement. The decorations of buildings with anything permanent, like stone mouldings and cornices, are thought wrong for the following reasons. And Sir John launches in. This is a smaller anthology, but I like it as much. And the publisher is Aurum. It's edited by Gavin Fuller. Oh, I see what this is. This is selected writings from the Telegraph. I dare say it paid for his beer and cigarettes. There are nearly 20,000 architects on the register of the Royal Institute. They cannot all be artists, although architecture is an art. I wonder if Prince Charles has read this. It couldn't be that he hasn't. And last, but not least, I got this when the library was selling off books, you know. It has illustrations by Osbert Lancaster, Moholy Naj. I'm sorry, well, Osbert Lancaster's work I did know. Look. Such is the dereliction of duty. If you like to go to Oxford, and I do, but not as much as I used to like to go to Oxford. This book was published originally in 1938, and it was republished by Oxford University Press, who did so much for chess as well, in 1979, and once again comes out, this edition, in 1990. He calls it an architectural tour. And who better than Sir John to be our guide? There we are. There we are. If I said that was Gothic Spain, Keble College, 1870, by William Butterfield, a great Gothic revival at its best. So I was right. I was about to say that. Good God, I actually got something. More stained glass. Jonah and the Whale. I suppose you can see the teeth, can't you? See the teeth? Jonah travelled, I think, inside the whale, but was not cut up. He went down as the whale's gut and then came up again, possibly representing some sort of spiritual experience or possibly just sleep. A bit of both, maybe. Here is the Radcliffe Observatory, now a science laboratory. It was designed by Henry Keene over a 4-year period. and finished by James Wyatt in 1795. I'll show you it. I don't know it. Here's Broad Street. Which I like to go to Blackwell's, as I'm sure Sir John did, which is a large bookshop. He's talking about dons. It was Robert Robinson that saw two dons passing him in the park, and one turned to the other and said, "And ninthly," here he is in gown and mortarwood. Some scholar, I'm sure. And here is somebody, not him, I'm sure, in the Bodleian Library. There we are. I'm going to draw to a close now. I've gone on for over half an hour. I hope you've enjoyed a gentle wander, a chinwag as I call them, through the writings of Sir John Betjeman. He is not a forgotten poet, neither is he forgotten, or even, how shall we say, he isn't ignored. His commentaries are still worthwhile, and we can visit and revisit him as we wish. And I would bracket him in that respect with Dr. Johnson, who was also an Oxford man, and amongst other things, he'd hate me to say that, to encapsulate his life in one phrase. But for all of that, I damn well have done so. I've been James Pratt. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.